topics discussed are used under the copyright law that states fair use of copyrighted works for the purposes of criticism, comment, reporting, or research is allowed. Every topic or video researcher will be credited on all episodes. I can share their work, but will not take credit for it. Give them credit they deserve. Thank you.
Welcome to Lovespiracy, and I am your host, Trinity. I had this whole thing played out. It's like this. It's like the first time I've been back, and I had like this whole thing written out and it was script. And I kept trying to record, and it just didn't sound like myself. So I decided to just go off the cuff and just have this discussion. So this is pretty much about men and women, but the hatred of men towards women and the state that we're in today. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that kind of happens between men and women where men think that we're supposed to have like some place in the world that is just consistent with just being weak and nonsensical and erratic, and we just don't know what to do with ourselves half the time, and so that's their thing. So there is a term called gynophobia, which I didn't know existed, and it has the Greek meaning which means women, and phobos which means fear. So I had no idea that this thing actually existed, but it's literally the hatred and phobia of women, but that they fear that men fear that they're inadequate. So I kind of thought there's no way that this is actually a thing, and it is. So we have guys that are like 6 feet tall, and they have like this jawline, and it's like, oh my god, he's so handsome. Okay, and then we have men that are like shorter. I don't want to give like a certain height, but shorter, and maybe really thin, or maybe overweight, or whatever. Anyway, and if they're single, they kind of blame women for it. The same way the 6 foot tall guy, he could have a lot of women, but he can't kind of stick with one because he feels like he has too many choices. So the misconception I feel is that there was a point in time where women and men had to choose accordingly, like over time. So a woman would have to choose like the strongest man, and want to procreate to have strong children and lineage and all this stuff. But what men and women fail to actually realize is that women had to do the same thing. They couldn't just, I mean, we have this whole thing where you gotta like hit a lady in the head with like some kind of a stick, and then you drag her to your cave, and then this is how the whole thing happens. That's indoctrination in the worst way. This isn't the freaking Flintstones. We had to choose accordingly, and there had to be some kind of a, so there'd be like a group of like 50 people, and they were all just odd in their own separate ways. And then there was like one guy who was really really strong, and one woman that was really really strong, and they had to find a way to get through everybody else to get themselves together, and to think that they were the ones that were going to be strong, that kids would be strong, blah blah blah. Anyway, they left out everybody else. And this is again something that men and women think that they have in the opposite, but they have in common. This has been happening for so long. So every time we have something that we come to realization about is that when babies were born, and especially boys, when they were born and they had like a misshapen foot, or something, anything, they would be discarded because it didn't make sense to bring a child into the world that didn't have the strength that was needed in order to flourish in their society or to bring anything to the table. So that's what they did. I mean, it sounds weird now because obviously we don't do that, and that's like a whole conversation that we'd be having later on. But for now, they would be discarded. So, to our understanding, we would only mix these two strong, masculine, whatever people, and then they would only produce the strongest, the best, the fastest, the smartest. And they could provide for everybody. They could just kick everybody's ass, and there wasn't going to be a problem. Women knew their place at that time, right? It was raising the kids, cooking, cleaning, washing, all of that. The difference between now and then is that women and men back then absolutely understood their places. Not in a way where I'm like, oh, men and women are different. Just understanding that women knew that men brought a certain amount of strength that provided, but that men clearly understood that women taking care of business is what made them thrive. It wasn't a downfall. It wasn't seem like a chore or a job or something that was labeled towards you. They absolutely knew that both of them had to work together in order to thrive in their own societies. Something that obviously we don't do today. Here's where the problem started. It was literally a time where women started realizing that maybe they weren't really paying attention to what they brought to the table, and they were probably a little stronger or knew a little bit more uh, than they were led to believe. So instead of men saying no, go beat our clothes up on a rock, they were like, okay, well, I know you're smart, I know you have strength, I can see you. How about I teach you how to kick ass and you still be a woman? We completely ignore that there were women warriors out there. I mean, by the droves, that were literally taught to fight, had the compassion, but would literally go out there and fight just like the men. That wasn't seen as a downfall in society. That was seen as a strength and say, wow, um, she can walk into like a castle, or she can walk into somebody's kingdom, and she can say, hey, I'm pretty, I'm smart, I can bear your children. And she could walk into this place, literally use her own sexual in nature and her intelligence, infiltrate an entire place, and then kick everybody's ass in order to win for everybody else. That was a strength. Being able to have both, that was something that men literally took as a greatness, as something that even they really didn't have at that time. I'm not saying that men didn't have this sexuality and learn how to use it. That would be stupid. Uh, but understanding the role that women played. And again, men played the exact same role, where they used their sexuality with kings and queens and everything else. So we were able to get all that. The difference is that, and like I said, women were appreciated and men did not feel emasculated because of it. They literally saw it as a strength. So every single time since then, we've literally had just hundreds, thousands of years probably, and we're in 2024. So we have the possibility of like a female president. This is gonna make everybody go to shit, and this is really why I'm doing this. Like I said, I had this all planned out. I can't even do it. So understanding where men see women these days. Here's a bunch of stuff, not a bunch, but here's some stuff that men fail to realize may be the reason why they're not connecting with women and women doing the exact same thing. So, this is going to be really hard to have a discussion about. We started with demonizing women early on, right? So we had the Bible, and there was Eve, and the eternal suffering, or whatever. Then we had the Aztecs. Then we had matriarchy, which is hidden and suppressed. So we didn't want women to know their strength. So we just pipe slippers, uh, dressing and doing your hair and your face for like 5 minutes after he gets home before he has a martini and passes out, right? So you spend your whole day just doing this. When we started turning things around and started noticing that women could also find a companion and they get to choose who they want to be with, I want somebody strong. I want somebody smart. I want somebody that could protect me. All of that stuff, it changed everything. Men got so adjusted to just being men. They didn't care about anything else. They just automatically thought, I'm a dude, I got a penis. All the women are going to just come to me because this is kind of what I do and this is what I got. So this is the world. I get this. No, that's really not how it works. So they become irrational, they start starting their own groups, and this I'm going to have to read. There's a few groups today where it's just angry men with other men, and they're not having women into their lives, and they're ignoring that they themselves, by the way, they themselves are not putting in the work. They're just pissed. They're just pissed. They're like, I walk up to every single girl, and you could look this up, and you can find the videos of random dudes. They're not bathing. They won't put decent clothes on. They're just walking straight into it. You want to date me? You want to kiss me? You want to go on a date with me? And women, like, seriously, like, you made zero effort. And it doesn't have to be like drop dead models, even though that's what men think they're gonna get. Uh, and then they're just like, dude, like you didn't even bother to shower before you asked me, so that's a no. And then they're like, oh, women just keep rejecting me, and they don't want to have to be with me or anything like that. Well, here's kind of a clue on what's going on. So the ADL, which is the Anti-Defamation League, they've actually been keeping an eye on these groups. So here I'm gonna have to read. So it is okay. So it's called the Misogynist Manosphere, and I know a lot of people heard about that. So from ADL.org, it says the broad set of male supremacist, anti-feminist, misogynist, and sometimes violent extremist movements that exist largely online, such as the MGTOW, which stands for Men Going Their Own Way. Here's some of their stuff that that their members have to understand in order to join. Uh, Western society has been corrupted by feminism. They perceive all people and cultures as feminist until proven otherwise. Their separatist behavior stems from a paranoid defensive posture in which everyone who isn't with them is against them, and everybody who is against them poses a direct threat. That's a big red flag. Anyway, individuals may adopt the MGTOW ideology for any number of reasons, but several common precursors include being rejected by women, being subjected to perceived discrimination or unrealistic male beauty standards, and shifting cultural norms. These are also known as the red pill. And I don't want to mention their names because I don't want to give them any kind of like credence or just anybody clicking on their links and shit. So, anyway, there's a lot of dudes out there with podcasts. There's a lot of guys out there doing vlogging and all of this stuff. And they're called the red pill. And they literally start stating that they are top class men and that you shouldn't get married unless you run through an entire list of women and then make that kind of a choice. But you have to date women that are only what they would consider, and I'm just quoting them, by the way, whores or women that have been around or single moms or a woman of a certain age. So they're just like, you could run through those women and then eventually you'll find your own woman, but they're low value, you're high value. So this signifies awareness of feminism corruption, right? So this is from Psychology Today. Their paranoid vision is of a world that is gynocentric, with men as victims of a system that favors women and persecutes men. And I've heard that many, 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 many times. While it is tempting to overlook the largely baseless claims of groups like these, we ignore them at our own peril. The pain and emotional suppression, disconnection, and loneliness these groups are expressing is real. And if we don't find a way to acknowledge and respond compassionately to their pain, it will continue to be acted out in these angry, destructive ways. And it is a actual known fact. You can find that as well. Are guys that have literally said, I can't find a woman, nobody wants to date me, and then they go stab a bunch of women. or they go out and shoot a bunch of women. Like they purposely go after these women, but state to themselves, have convinced themselves, had other men convince them that they're top notch. They don't have to make much effort. They don't have to do anything in order to get themselves the type of women that they're looking for. It's just women are assholes and they're never going to find anybody to love them because women just don't have any compassion towards men. So here's the switch around. So men fail to understand that women also had to find somebody who was strong and do all this other stuff. But dudes also had to find somebody who's fertile, voluptuous females. Their choices weren't always random, but they needed to keep their lineage intact, right? They couldn't just go and go off onto something. And this is a long time ago. This isn't like recent. I mean, we're still doing this recently, but it's not that recent. And this is why they set into play that men need multiple wives, right? So you can have like 13 wives. Somebody's gonna have a boy for you, right? So you got like, and I'm completely cool with me using these terms, and if you don't like them, you know what? That's fine. So you got like your top hoe, right? So this is like the one that you had first, right? And then she brings in all these other women. That's not new. That's not a part of like the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and even the 80s ideology. This is literally from thousands of years ago and how the harem started. So you always had that top woman, and then she would educate all the other women on how to deal with you and what part they would play. Even though we just want to act like pimps are new, pimps are not new, and a lot of the times pimps are women. Um, so they were easily swayed by women's sexuality, and then we kind of ignore that that wasn't always the thing. We have prostitution, we got OnlyFans, we got porn, and that's stuff that we don't even want to discuss. But that's where men's money really goes. So some men refuse to take accountability, right? For them thinking that women have to be 100 pounds, they got to have big tits, you know what I mean? They got to be obedient, they got to be 5'8". They have to do all of these things, and that if they don't come with that kind of in that kind of game, then what are they going to waste their time with you for, right? Men are constantly arguing that women are looking for money and status, refusing to take women out. They invite them to dinners, they don't want to pay, or they don't want to go Dutch, all while they're paying monthly hundreds of dollars on strangers on the internet that they have no chance with, by the way, uh, and wouldn't give them the time of day. They wouldn't spit on them if they were on fire, but they feel they can always do better. Sometimes they wind up doing that. They either cheat or they leave their spouse, which they think is for somebody else, and then boom, shit doesn't work out, and they're like, okay, I got to go back home. Some women take them back. Fully understandable. It's dependent on everybody's situation. And then some guys wind up taking the rest of their lives either understanding that the person they were with set the bar or that they just can't do any better. And then they just stay unhappy. Or they keep chasing the person that they were with. So it's the same thing as women being with a cheater. And they'll stay and be like, okay, well, I could change him. You know, he only did that to the last girl. You know what I mean? Like, there's something into that. And I don't even want to get into like the domestic abusers and the victims because it kind of goes both ways. You got to kind of get into the psychological aspect of the women that stay and the men who actually do the abuse. That's a whole different show. Um, but it is something that is also the separation between men and women and the status that they feel that they have. Where we feel we have to nurture and not kick a dude to the curb, and where men think that um, they have the upper hand against women and they can abuse them to the point of submission. So I'm just going to throw that out there. When we start taking the differences between the sexes, I need to make sure that we're not in a bubble. I've been talking about this, we're not in a bubble. There's men and men, women and women. It's everybody in the same situation. There's a man who could be the man, a woman could be the woman. What I don't care what your situation is. Everybody's in the same exact place where we all have these differences. I just happen to bring up men and women because it was just easier to do that and I didn't feel like doing anything else. But there's an actual importance to understanding that we're not as different as we think that we are. It doesn't matter. We need to remove the middleman, the person that told us we need to be separated, that there was no way in hell, literal hell, that we were going to be able to be conducive to each other. I can't love you and you can't love me. We have women that think that they have to one up a guy and just be like, okay, I'm getting my hair, I'm getting my nails done, I'm doing this, and not even understanding because it still boggles my mind as a woman why you would want to have fake eyelashes, you know what I mean, to have like this fake body, push up bras and things that make your butt bigger. Like you don't have to if you go out like that and you go out and meet a dude at a library, I'm not even gonna say a club. You meet a guy at a library, he's like, hey, I like that book too. You're like, me too. And then you guys hit it off. Eventually, you know, you might get into a physical thing. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? You're not that person. You don't look that way. You never look that way. You have this outside persona within yourself where you have to literally take the eyelashes off, you got to take the bra off, and when that person sees you, you are definitely not the person that that they thought that you were. But that goes both ways. It literally does. We have men that are setting the standard based on porn, OnlyFans, and they want these impossible types. And when you start getting yourself into this like bracket of people thinking that you're better than everybody else and that you could do better, and the higher you think your status is, it makes you more relevant to those people, you are going to be screwed. If you date a woman that you obviously see and know, because it's not like it's not obvious, right? My eyelashes can't be 10 inches long, right? And then you have dudes that are putting some fake shit in their pants and they look like they're 10 inches long. Everybody's screwing themselves. And not literally and definitely not in a good sense. It's everybody just being fake. We don't have anybody that's out there real. And then when we get those people, we shit on them. Oh, you can't be overweight. You have to be body shamed. Oh, you can't have hair on your legs and on arms because that's not feminine. How you call it? You can't just have these traits of wearing, and I'm like that. I love my sweatpants and my baseball caps. Don't knock me for any of that. Um, it's something that it's based on the individuals, based on comfort. Men don't want to be fake in that sense because they know ultimately they're gonna have to, go home and notice that that's not what they are. And women have to go home with you and realize that they got to take them eyelashes off, that they have to show exactly who they are. And when you do that, and you do that enough with the same fake people, and all you understand is this fakeness, then of course we're going to separate. So when you start seeing that, if you know that that's exactly what we do, and you go out on a date with a girl who obviously has these traits, where she obviously is not showing you exactly who she is, and then you complain later that she just wasn't what I thought she was. Hey, dummy, you should have noticed that when you picked her up at the club. You know what I mean? You should have noticed that. And if you say that you didn't, then your ignorance is your problem. Same way with women. Oh, this guy bought me 3 drinks. He got to have money. And then he's like, hey, I want to go Dutch at Burger King. And then you're like, what the hell are you talking about? And then again, that's your misconception of what it is that you thought you were going to get. So we just keep screwing each other over and over and over again and not realizing that if we just took all of this and said, you know what? I love you. I love you for who you are. I love you with all your faults. I love the way you look when you're just you. It's like Just the Way You Are by Billy Joel, one of my favorite songs. It's about just being who you are, and then me or you loving each other in that sense, where we get it. We see our flaws, we see our bullshit. You know what I mean? We go through the ups, we go through the downs, we fight, we argue, we hug, we watch movies, everything that comes into this one thing. And we're told that we can't have that. It's Netflix and chill, which pretty much just means I'm going to turn on a movie and I'm going to try to have sex with you. The fact that we can't even think about going and watching a movie without a dude literally trying to do something with you, that's horrific. That's horrifying that we live in that type of society. There's going to be a point in time where we're going to get called out on it. We're going to have to be together. We're going to have to love one another. And I, like I said, I'm my bubble, everybody else's bubble should be non existent. There's too many people out there. We're going through way too much shit to just be like, oh, I don't like you because nobody cares. Just do what makes you happy. Don't harm anybody. Don't belittle anybody. Just kind of do your thing. But our separation between each other was man made. It was built this way. It's not natural in any sense of the word. Not at all. And until we start realizing that and taking that more seriously, we are going to stay screwed. No babies are being made. Nobody wants to get married. And when they do, they want to get a divorce right away. We're just so artificial that we can't get ourselves straight. And that's going to be a huge problem for generations to come. So, with that being said, I'm glad I went off the cuff. This was fun. So, we're at the end of the show. I really hope that you enjoyed this. Um, I love my research. I love everything that makes me just kind of want to have conversations with you. It sounds kind of odd, but I don't feel like I'm talking to like a group. Like I'm not looking at a camera, and I will be eventually. But it will always be about me and you having this conversation. And I hope that you give me feedback. And it doesn't matter what kind of feedback. I really don't care. Um, but I'm hoping that you'll join me again on Love Spiracy. Uh, this is going to be a constant. I'm going to try to bring you the best kind of topics, the best kind of conversations. I'm going to be having guests on soon. It's just a part of me and everything that comes with this, and then everything that I want to share with everybody else. You can be a part of it, not be a part of it. I'm okay. I just want to share my thoughts. So, I'm your host, Trinity. And I honestly, honestly hope to see you again. Thank you. And good night, good morning. I don't know. All right. Take care. Mwah, 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 mwah.